Good evening and welcome to tonight's webinar. So tonight we are going to be looking at careers outside of London. So my name is Pete Little and I'm the Business Development Manager for the North of England. My background is 20 years experience within commercial and recruitment roles. That's been global, but with a particular focus on Germany, Poland, Turkey and Russia. So tonight's webinar, we're going to be looking at career opportunities in organisations in the North East, and in particular with Virgin Money. And I'm very pleased to say that I've managed to find 4 people who have worked outside of London with Virgin Money, the vets at Virgin team, who are Nick, Ed and Beth. So first up, I'd like to introduce you to Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Pete. Thanks so much indeed. Hi, everyone. I suppose a little resume of me. I left the Army pretty much 2 years ago in July 2015. I finished as a Lieutenant Colonel. My final job was in the Ministry of Defence. I'd been in 5 Scots, the Argyll and Southern Highlanders. When I left, I guess I networked into my current role. So I went to a Hara Hero night in London. And managed to pick up a job there as the Chief of Staff or the Chief Operating Officer at Virgin Money. And then from there, I guess once I sort of got into Virgin Money, I networked again and currently find myself working as a program manager in the IT and change department of Virgin Money. Rather bizarrely, I live down in Canterbury, but the head office of Virgin Money is up in Newcastle. So I commute backwards and forwards doing the weekly commute. So happy to answer any questions on any of that later on as we go through the webinar. That's me. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Nick. And if I can introduce Ed now, please. Hi, Ed.
Hi, guys. My name's Ed Peshley. Obviously, as you can see there, I left 4 Rifles in June 2013 after a 22-year career. I finished as a warrant officer, company sergeant major. I had a slightly different entry to the business to Nick. I effectively worked up here as a contractor, but it was via a corporate partner as a team lead in the mobile applications team to develop some enterprise, which is like internal facing applications for Virgin Money. After a period of a year as a contractor, I applied and I was successful for a role in the CI team in what was sales and marketing, and I have since moved into the business improvement team within operations, which is part of the same chief operating office that Nick is part of, but it is distinctly different, as I'm sure we'll figure out as we go through. I was reluctant to resettle my family. I was living Nick's world of a Monday to Friday in Newcastle and a Saturday and Sunday in Salisbury. But once I was successful with a permanent role, that gave me the stability to move my family up into Newcastle, which I did in August 2014.
Thanks, Ed. And finally, we have Beth.
Hi, evening everyone. Just a quick potted history, I guess. So my qualifications are primarily from the CII and the CIPD. I've been in financial services for 20 years. I know I don't look it. But primarily I've worked in London, Leeds, Dublin and up here more recently. My roles have been pretty varied. So I've done lots of operational roles, ops management, that kind of thing. I've worked in the risk team for my sins. That was pretty fascinating couple of years. And I'm now officially ensconced in the HR team. So I'm responsible for early careers. So I do employability workshops. I'm responsible for work experience. And I also deal with our apprenticeships program as well.
Thanks for that, Beth. And just to reinforce that, all the guys are part of an internal network within Virgin Money called Vets at Virgin, which has been fantastic for organising events, insight events, which we'll be talking about later, and offering advice to service leavers. So thanks very much for joining us tonight. And if I can now maybe hand you over to Nick to take you through just a little bit about what Virgin Money is all about, and what do they do as an organisation, please, Nick.
Yeah, certainly. Virgin Money is a retail bank. So unlike an investment bank that people might have heard of in terms of, so Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, It's not one of those. It offers products that most of you will be pretty familiar with in terms of a current account, mortgages, savings, investments, ISAs, that sort of thing. So I think it's an environment a bit like many of the banks that you see on the high street. It's a high street bank. So I guess that's the first bullet there. As I've already mentioned, the main office, the head office is in Gosforth, just outside Newcastle. Some of you who investigated Virgin Money would have picked up the fact that a few years ago, just after the big crash of 2008, Virgin Money that was then Virgin Direct and based down in Norwich bought the old Northern Rock, or the good parts of Northern Rock, and then became this bigger retail bank. We've also got offices in Edinburgh, Norwich, London, and Chester, which again you can see on the slide there. But Gosforth is very much the largest bit. There's about 2,500 people, and then there's the remaining sort of 500, 600, 700 people are spread across the country. And obviously it's got a big store and lounge network as well. That again, about 78 stores and lounges throughout the country. So in terms of the Virgin Money's business ambition, we have a thing called EBO, which I guess goes into a little bit of our culture. Everyone's better off. So we have a sort of 5 C's that back that up. So we've got customers, colleagues, corporate partners, community, and company, and those are the 5 groups that we want to get better off. And as you can see there, philosophy underpins our approach to business, and you can see the remainder of that bullet there. In terms of organisational structure, in terms of department, I guess my first bit of advice is that we're used to in the military, lots of organograms, and it's all nice and beautifully set out. I guess when you get to civilian life and the corporate world, there are obviously lots of departments, but they all sort of interlink differently, and in some ways, unexpectedly, in comparison with what you're used to in a military environment. So just written down on that final bullet, some of the departments, some of the main departments that we've got within the banks. You've got finance, HR, risk, audit, commercial, operations are big things. You've got a whole lot of floors stacked full of people doing call centers and processing mortgage applications, all that sort of thing. You've got IT and change. There's a whole load of IT infrastructure that goes underneath to make the whole bank work, and you've got a change function that effectively makes improves things and brings in new IT platforms or new IT software, for example, into the bank. And then you've got security facilities, and you've got a creative and a culture department as well. I think we might be one of the only banks that has a culture department, and obviously that goes back to that third bullet with regards to EVO. So very, very, very heavy on culture in Virgin Money. So I think that's my overview. That's what I'll say. Beth and Ed, is there anything that I've missed that you'd like to bring out?
Great stuff, thanks. And what we'll do now is we'll just run our first poll of the evening. And this one for you who have joined webinars in the process, probably a pretty familiar one for you. But we'd like to understand as the audience, what military skills do you consider would be most useful within a civilian workplace? So I'm just going to launch that now. So if you could just select which one you think would be most useful within that. Is it analysis? Is it good old leadership, planning, team building, or is it the delivery element of military skill set that is most valuable within the civilian workplace? And so the results of that, actually, we can see that a third consider leadership to be the most important skill for the civilian workplace. 17% say planning, just 8% team building, and 42% are actually saying that delivery is the major area there. So I'll open that up to you guys. What does that feel like from your experience with Virgin Money?
For me, I think. Sorry. For me, I think it's Ed. I think that what's really surprised me is the analysis got absolutely zero. In my sort of current team, it's absolutely critical, because the analysis of the sales performance provides the insight of where we need to focus our efforts to drive improvement. So it really sits down with there. I mean, the delivery, yeah, leadership maybe not so important. Burning drive for results is great, but for me, I found it quite unusual that analysis was absolutely a 0 on there.
And Nick, what's your thoughts on that? And your analysis, is that a real strong requirement?
I guess it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I don't know, when I think of my military skill set, it comes as a sort of full package. Any job that I've been given, I've just gone for it and learnt about it and got in amongst it, and within a couple of months, you're sort of up and running and you're adding value. Analysis is, it's clearly important, and I guess most of the officers who are attending this will have had a reasonable amount of experience doing it with a through your estimate process, your 7 questions and everything else. So it certainly comes in handy. But whether it's the most useful one, I don't know. I guess that's the question. Is most useful. I think leadership, is definitely there. I mean, maybe leadership may be the wrong thing. You bring quite a lot of personality, because you're different. You're a bit of a strange beast when you arrive in a civilian environment. I don't know. It depends on how long I guess you've been in the military, but if you like it or not, you're different. You've had a whole load of different experiences. And one of those things as an officer will be, leadership. You'll have, been leading people, 30 people or whatever from the moment that you joined your units. So there's a lot of sort of innate stuff that you'll do that you don't realise you're doing, that I think will add benefit to an organisation. And I think all the other planning, definitely, you get in amongst it. You know what a plan looks like. You can build teams, you can bring people in and deliver. Yeah, you want to get stuff done. And you've been in loads of you have loads of experience of that. Being asked to do something outside your comfort zone, you just get on and do it. So I think it's the full package. Difficult to say what the most useful one is.
You could put a strong argument for any, really, couldn't you? And you can link that to sort of how we operate. I mean, we have similar sorts of terminology to what we're asking there. So you could probably Beth could probably put a different spin on it from a HR perspective, from me from a sort of CI, and you from a change perspective, Nick. So I think they're all exactly what.
All right, I was going to say from my perspective, I think Ed Pashley, who's sitting opposite me, actually has a bit of a saying that I refer to when I'm talking about the things that I've learned from working with the Vets at Virgin team. And he often says, admin is not a dirty word. That's something that I really value from having worked with the Vets at Virgin team, is the fact that, whether that sits within planning and delivery or somewhere in between the two, actually getting stuff done and knowing that being organised and needing to nail a plan and deliver what's on that plan is kind of completely critical. I really value that in the Vets at Virgin team that I've worked with, and that's certainly a skill that I've seen carry these guys in my experience.
Oh, thanks, that's really, getting stuff done, absolutely. And one of the other considerations, I guess, is these types of skills, it will vary depending on what role you're actually going to take on with the organisation. So that leads nicely into, of course, the career paths that are possibly available for officers within Virgin Money. So it'd be great to if you could just talk through some of those common career paths.
Yeah, maybe shall I start then? So I guess it's really difficult, because I think when you're in the process of leaving the army, you think, crikey, right, what am I good at? What skills have I got that can go into a civilian organisation? And if you're like me, you've had 20 years in the military or whatever, and you haven't got a clue what an organisation, how it's all built and structured and everything else. So I guess that the key bit of advice from me is that go out there and speak to people who are in jobs that you think might be appropriate for yourself and your skill set, and speak to all your friends, and network is definitely the most important to get a feel what might be good. I mean, project management is a clear one. There's a whole load of project management skills in terms of Prince 2 and Agile, and there's a whole load of other courses that you can do to sort of give you the stamp of approval. But it's definitely one that I think a whole lot of officers have gone into, project management, and also the senior ranks as well. in the military. But yeah, there is definitely a whole load of structure. To me, a little bit, it feels like, 7 questions estimate. When I arrived in the change department, there was a whole load of SOPs effectively that one had to follow. And it felt very much like going through after the battalion to ICS 7 questions, estimate a cast or whatever. Then I guess you got, risk. I don't really know a great deal about, but a lot of people seem to be in that. And obviously, there's a whole load of different types of risk that you can look into.
Nick,
sorry, Beth, go on.
All right. Would you like me to talk about risk, having worked there?
Yeah, you go for it. Yeah, having been in risk, you probably know it. Cheers.
No, you're really welcome. You're really welcome. So I guess the key activities that risk spend their time doing, without wanting to sound facetious, is analysing risk. So in terms of kind of critical analysis skills are probably the key skills that you'd be using in that business area. Your ability to look dispassionately at information and make a judgment call on that. And challenge and evaluation. And the thing with the risk teams that I very often find is that certainly they're kind of financial services specialists. When people talk about what is a banker, very often for me, I think about the risk team, because they're the people that you don't tend to see in many other industries in the way that we do here. To work in that function, however, you probably do need to have a good grounding in what is financial services and how it works. So I would argue that in terms of a career path, there's probably some groundwork that you potentially need to do to get your understanding of financial services and how it works going. And that may well be actually through a project management role or through some other less connected role. So in terms of qualifications that we tend to see in there, very often we see accountancy qualifications or legal qualifications as kind of a grounding. And then there are risk-specific qualifications. And there's also a grounding, arguably, in financial services generic qualifications. So I'm thinking of, for example, a chartered banker, the professional banking certificate, and those kind of things. I'll cover HR as well, as soon as I'm there. So HR, yeah, no, you're welcome. So HR is, obviously we're all about people. We are human resources. Sorry to keep using the 2-letter abbreviation. So we're all about people, and primarily that's about finding great people. That's about making sure that those great people know what they're doing. And that's about helping them upskill, and it's helping the business think about how we're making best use of our people and making sure that our people are happy and enjoying their jobs. You see why I love my job. So the kind of skills that you would tend to be using in that area, again, critical analysis, challenge and evaluation are part of that. Certainly coaching is a much bigger kind of skill set for us, people development, understanding the psychology of the people around you and how to work with people. And qualifications, generally, I would say the CIPD, so the qualifications that I hold with the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, there's a level 3 qualification out there, which is a good starting point, which isn't, it's kind of A-level standard, it's a good start, and they run all the way up to postgraduate level. Business management, so that would be kind of what I would call operational management, so actually just running the business, keeping the wheels on the bus and making sure that it works. Key activities there then are running large teams of people who have got specific tasks, and they have to deliver those tasks with certain levels of productivity. We're constantly scanning the horizon for risks and challenges that might hit keeping the operation running. So therefore, I would say kind of the key skills around there are probably kind of keeping your head and being able to foresee issues before they happen and plan and respond to them. Also coaching, managing a large team, dealing with kind of people development, and then general, administration and organisation, and making sure that everybody knows what everybody's doing. And qualifications for that are many and varied and none. Certainly for those types of roles, MBAs and that kind of thing would be at one end of the scale. But I got into operations management with none of that. It was just purely from experience of coming through an organisation through administration routes. Ed, would you like to take IT?
Cool, yeah, I'll take IT. So that was the first function or department that I started in, and to try and make it as generic as I can for the guys that have called in. What the first thing I noticed was the sheer size and the size. Virgin Money IT department has got more than 300 individuals in it, and predominantly, don't get hung up too much on this terminology, but we have it split between service and solutions, and probably the easiest way to give the callers to think about on the line is the technology is changed to bank, and services run the bank. and obviously there is some sort of overlap within those functions, which is cool, and they should do. But service comprises of things like all of the hardware, the network, telephony, support to internal colleagues, and the technology will have teams of developers for whether it's mainframe, we'll have all of the applications, and it will have all of our test functions, and ultimately they are two big functions. Now qualifications can be, if guys are into it, that there's some really deep IT qualifications that they can get, and if guys want to code, there is guys that have been in the forces that are coding for us at the moment. There's a guy from the REMI who is in an IT agile project management role within the lab, within our lab, which is how we deliver very short, sharp improvements. And the guy there he codes and he tests. So don't let that kind of restrict your judgment. The only thing with getting the deep understanding of the technical side of life, without stating the obvious, it's quite time consuming to develop that skill set. There's loads and loads of different little departments within IT, and every large company's IT will be similar with the way that they are set up. So you'll have guys that sort of develop, you'll have guys that test, you'll have guys that we call it release management, but actually deliver that product. You'll have the obvious one, which is really topical in the news at the moment, the sort of security side of life. So there is a vast of opportunities within our information technology department. The only downside to it is it's quite technical, so I'm not quite sure how that fits with guys leaving the forces, but not to tar everyone with the same brush. There will be some individuals out there that have got a natural flair for that, and as I said, there are guys operating within Virgin Money at the moment who are ex-military in a very technical role. That's IT.
And just thinking about that, do you find most service leavers will come into more of a non-technical element of IT, maybe more management side of things, or is there a split into going into some kind of deep technology side of things?
From my perspective, the easiest way to give you that benchmark, Pete, is the third party that I came from, which we won't chat about because it's about Virgin Money, it's not about corporate partners. Yep. The third party that I came from has two streams. It has a technical training stream and it has a PMO or project training stream, and there's a lot more individuals that come through the project management, the sort of looser aligned to a technical discipline, but there are guys that go through the full-on technical discipline and get placed very, very quickly. So to answer your question, majority of guys comes through non-technical routes.
No, thanks for that. And Nick, yourself, you touched on IT a little bit in your role as well. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's correct. I guess the program that I'm involved in at the moment is effectively moving us from an XP environment to an 8.1 environment. Very much in the news at the moment, obviously with the ransomware and everything else. So yes, so I guess I don't need to know all the technical detail of what people are doing, and some of the conversations I get involved in are very complicated, and it's quite difficult to make sense out of them. But I'm more on the management of it all. So I know that something needs to be done, and I know I need to get somebody to go and do it, which is about as far as I get into the detail. But I guess over time, like I said before, you pick up stuff, and over time, you end up building up a knowledge base and being able to speak about things intelligently. But it does take a bit of time. But yeah, definitely management rather than into the weeds.
Thanks for that, Nick. We'll move on to the next one of routes into Virgin Money and what are the options are there. And I think, Beth, you can maybe just talk us through some of these options within routes into an organisation like Virgin Money.
Yeah, so I guess the reality is that the cleanest way in is the direct application through our website. So we have a website called Virgin Money Careers, but we also advertise through the CTP and through a number of partner sites as well. And so, you know, the typical job sites that you would imagine, you would find out adverts for roles at Virgin Money. And so those are normally great places to look. But in reality, whichever other stream you come through, you will still end up in that channel. So there's something about kind of, if you are interested in roles at Virgin Money, certainly keeping your eye on that channel, putting some kind of searches on, and maybe not limiting yourself too much, maybe just seeing what's coming out of the system. There are also opportunities, so Ed's already talked about kind of joining us through a contract opportunity, so I'll come back to that, Ed, maybe you can kind of cover that one. Through a third party, through a recruiter or a corporate partner, it's not unusual for us to, we don't use agencies very often, that said. So one of the challenges, if you've exclusively tied yourself to an agency and avoid looking at job sites, then actually you may not be hearing about jobs at Virgin Money, because we don't always work with agencies because they charge us a lot of money, and we have quite a strong brand, so we don't have to fight for attention. But they do still exist, and we do have a number of people that have come to us through resourcing businesses, but also through third parties. So I can think of a couple of people who've joined the business because we've met them because they were here doing work for us, and we've decided to keep them. Certainly networking is a useful way of doing things. It's a useful way of meeting people in the business, getting to know people in the business, and kind of just keeping yourself known to people. I can think of a few people who've got into the business and heard about, as much as anything, heard about jobs that are available, and managed to get their application in for jobs that they've been interested in as a result of staying in touch with people here in the business.
Definitely, I can't second that any stronger myself. I came in through sort of a corporate partner route, but like Beth said, ultimately you are in the same mix as everybody else when you're applying for roles. The only advantage you might have is you might have a deeper understanding of company procedures, systems, which will be definitely advantageous. But the amount of good people that I've met on the various events that we've run at Virgin Money here who are from the ex-forces, the thing I would definitely stress, a lot of it is not personal, and it's timing. If that business that you're trying to gain that entry to is recruiting, well, go for it. But if they're not, there's not really much you can do about it. And obviously I wouldn't try and manipulate our recruitment system in any shape or form. But I've met some really strong candidates here that I'd love to have on my team, but unfortunately we didn't have that need for that resource at that time.
Mm-hmm. So really, as there's a combination of some of these routes, and actually is probably the best way. But finally, there has to be the vacancy available. So
entirely.
Thanks very much, guys. If we now move on to our second poll question of the evening, this is a little bit different from some of the typical webinar questions, but quite important to Virgin Money. So tonight we'd like to get your opinion on how close a cultural fit would you consider the military to be to Virgin Money? So quite an unusual one. So in your thought process, I'll just open that up. Do you think it's going to be a very close fit, military to Virgin Money, a financial service institution? Some fit, not a lot. None, completely different cultures, wouldn't even touch base, or rightly so, don't know, haven't had a chance to do the evaluation. So if you could just drop across your vote, and we'll then have a bit of a discussion about that afterwards. So 8% say it's a very close match. Within that, saying 8% don't know, totally understand that. The largest amount, actually 67, say some. So quite a some fit with the military to the Virgin Money, and then not a lot. So maybe I could open that up, guys. What do you think? Is there a cultural fit between the military and Virgin Money?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking this through before we started the webinar, and we weren't sure either. I think I think there are some real similarities, but I think there are some really strong differences as well. In terms of the differences, I think probably one of the key ones is kind of a real lack of hierarchy. So we have a very flat structure here as an organisation. We don't really do titles very much, and it's really about what you can achieve and how you behave rather than what title you may have. And for someone who comes from a hierarchical world, that might be quite frightening because it could feel like the rug is being pulled from under you, but it's also quite empowering depending on your viewpoint. And I guess probably the other side of that is that actually for us, it's not what you do is important, but how you do it is incredibly important. So that's what we call kind of behaviours. So the easiest example I can give you is that we can all drive a car potentially. So we all have the skill to drive a car, but we don't all necessarily do it in the same way. So some of us automatically give way to people. Some of us will push in and take a space if we find it. So that's what I mean by behaviours. And here, behaviours are incredibly important. And I see people, not necessarily people with a military background, but people even from a different company who feel a little bit surprised by how important that conversation is. And I guess probably the third big difference for me is the lack of career paths. So around here, people's careers are built from how great their last delivery was and the relationships that they've built and building a good profile for themselves. And so if someone joins a function and says, if I'm here, where can I get to? And the answer is pretty much always, well, where do you want to get to? And what are you going to do about it? Rather than it being, you'll do a year here and you'll do another year there and you'll do another year there. So that could probably feel like a very big change. Ed, you might have some to add or some similarities maybe, I don't know.
I think, Beth, you've managed to have a real wide and accurate description there, seeing as you've not served in the military. It is absolutely bang on. There are some very close similarities, and there are some wildly different similarities. I mean, on a lighter note, you do find yourself getting carried away, but there's always somebody in HR or learning and development just to keep you in check when you start swearing a little bit too enthusiastically. But we've got we call it being business unusual here is to do things slightly differently, and that is but very closely aligned to sort of the cultural side of in the military. It's in the military, I'm waffling here, it's you have got lots of opportunities, but your opportunities are driven by what cap badge you wear, regiment you're from, rank you are, whereas what Beth was saying there is kind of, oh, it's cool, you can do whatever you want, but nobody's gonna hold your hand to make you get there. But if you wanted to pursue a particular passion, people here will support you 100%. So some is a good answer to that. How close is the cultural fit?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer, but I think that actually leads nicely into the Insight Day, the Careers Active Day, because that's the opportunity to come along and see how close a fit there is with cultural fit. So maybe we'll just move on to that now and just make everyone aware of this event that is running up in Newcastle on the 8th of June. And maybe just invite you to just talk through what that's all about. It's not just Virgin Money, it happens to be Virgin Money are hosting that. But maybe you guys could just talk through what this event was, building on the one that was run last year.
That's great. Well, shall I quickly go for it? Because I know time is running short, but effectively there's 3 sections. The first section is a number of presentations from HR. We've got a couple of guest speakers as well. One of them is called Voice in the Room, which is effectively giving you some instruction about how you can make the best of yourself in interview techniques, amongst other things, and how to be a powerful speaker. There's also a guy called Dennis Flynn who's coming along to talk about cultural change, about how you manage it and some of the coping mechanisms that you can use. So that's the first section, number of presentations. The second section is a bit of a sort of speed dating. So we've got a whole lot of companies coming along that are based up in the Northeast or have opportunities up in the Northeast, and they'll effectively be given a slot or whatever to stand up and say, hey, this is who we are. These are the routes into employment in our organisation. And then the third section is effectively networking drinks, and we'll get some of the hiring managers from Virgin Money, and also all these organisations that we've got standing up giving that speed dating chat for you to network with, and hopefully explore the opportunities that they have. So hopefully it'll be a really useful day, and of course there'll be the Vets of Virgin team will be there. There's about 12 of us from all across the rank structure, and we can answer any questions that you have about the transition that we've been through. So that is it, and hope to see you then.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Nick. And yeah, just to reinforce some of the organisations there. I mean, you can see that in the middle of the slide, but Securitas, Northumbria Police, Accenture, consultancy firm, Komatsu, manufacturing, NHS, and Virgin Money are all going to be in the room, plus a few others that will be joining for networking as well. So a great event to meet with employers in the Northeast, and hopefully to answer that question whether there are any careers outside London. I think this kind of demonstrates that there absolutely are in there. So yeah, please come along for that one. It was a very successful event last year, and hopefully that will continue. So if during the session you've been dropping some questions across to us, so what I'll do is I'll just pull those up. If I can pick out them, we'll probably just take 5 or so minutes on this one because we have run over a little bit there. But maybe I can pull out. There's one directly for you, Nick, and actually a bit of crossover as well, Ed, about locations. Just a little bit. Don't have to answer, of course, but why taking a role in Newcastle rather than somewhere closer to home down in Canterbury? Then what stood out for you for this Virgin Money role in Newcastle?
So I guess the original gig for the Virgin Money job is that I would spend a couple of days down in London in their Piccadilly offices, and then I would spend a couple of days up in Newcastle. It's actually turned out that I'm spending most of my time up in Newcastle. So I had spent my last job in the MOD had been in the Ministry of Defence, and I had been weekly commuting backwards and forwards from Canterbury. I think I was just over the amount of miles as the crow flies between the two locations to qualify for a flat in London. So I guess I got used to it, and it was a hey, I'm either going to be daily commuting, which is going to be a bit of a nightmare from Canterbury. It's going to be about an hour and 20 minutes one way, or I can get out to Newcastle or whatever, new job, and I can really go for it. And I can work in the evenings and impress people and all that stuff. So I guess that was a little bit on my mind. Sort of being away and being able to really focus on making my first step. And of course, I like Virgin Money. I like the culture. I like the individuals that I met, and it seemed to be a good fit as well. I was also looking at Barclays at the same time, and being very kindly offered a position there, and I went for the Virgin Money one, despite it meaning travel. But I guess I'm now my own man, so I can if things don't work out or whatever, and I don't like weekly commuting or whatever, then I can just move on. It's not like being in the military where you've got to wait 2.5 years. I can move whenever I want as long as somebody's going to give me a job somewhere else.
That's a good point, actually. And maybe linked to that, another question is: do you feel you have the same sense of purpose that you had within the military, with it being a completely different sector? And Ed, would be good to get your views on that as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in the army, I was expected to deliver stuff. In Virgin Money, I'm expected to deliver stuff. So there is sort of a close similarity. It seems that perhaps it's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit more serious here. I seem to have a little bit more fun where things, obviously when you're on operations, everything's obviously for the right reasons, very serious. But where, you know, your BAU, business as usual in camp routine was always, you know, quite fun, whereas you still had a sense of purpose, but it was almost, you know, not in the same level of pressure and deliverables that you face within financial services.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, that's really useful. Well, maybe we'll have a couple more questions because I realise time is grinding on. The first one is thinking about routes into Virgin Money, and the third one about temporary employment and contracting. I mean, how effective is that as a route into Virgin Money or financial services as a whole? Good to get your views on that one.
For me, third party was extremely practical because going back to your earlier question, why did you take the role? I mean, I took, for me, it was nothing was permanent at the time. I took the opportunity to work with Virgin Money. I was effectively working a 3-month gig. So at the end of that 3 months, I might not be around anymore. But in that same breath, I didn't know whether I would enjoy it. So it kind of, when I left the military, you have the same sort of mentality that you don't want to let your employer down, whatever that employer is, or you want to be loyal to that employer. So for me, if we was bottom line up front, you was only there for a short period of time. That was the deal. You was only there for a short period of time, and for me, I was kind of hoping for a role that was closer to home, but it just didn't work out like that, Pete. And sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. Back to what I said earlier, I still firmly believe it's a lot of it is to do with timing, because it doesn't matter whether you're third party corporate partner, whether you're contracted, or whether you're just approaching direct off of the internet, like we've spoke about. It's timing. So probably the pluses for me of third party contracting would be, if any of the guys are thinking about doing that and it does all go horribly wrong for them in whatever financial services institution, hey, it's not all is lost, because you'll find that the way that the functions are put together and how they're formulated are very, very similar. So if you can go and have an experience with one financial services provider for a short period of time, then go to another one, you'll find that, you know, as we chatted about, IT departments is a good example, changes, all of this sort of, the way that the functions are produced and work together are very, very similar. So yeah, definitely it can work to your advantage. There seems to be sort of a stereotypical view that you can go and earn, you know, fantastic wages being a contractor, but you aren't going to do that leaving the services. You need a lot of experience within financial services. So, you know, discount that route and discount that pipe dream for 10 years anyway, guys, until you've got that experience. But for me, I would be slightly biased. I would say it would definitely do you no harm and don't discount any temporary opportunities, because you don't know where they're going to lead, you know.
Very true. No, thanks, Ed. And just thinking about stereotypes, actually, I'll maybe put Beth in the limelight for this one as part of the vetting team. How do you think that the service leavers actually were perceived when they arrived at Virgin Money? Do you think they were reinforcing stereotypes, or were they dissipating them?
I think it's quite difficult to say, to be absolutely honest. I think I can stand back, and I'd like to say that we're different, you know, and that we don't do stereotypes. We definitely try not to, but in reality, people do have preconceived ideas of people leaving the forces. And I think one of the things that I would want to hope that everybody who has joined this evening kind of takes away from this is that there are kind of a couple of different layers when we're looking for people. So knowledge, if I think about it, is what you know. We can teach you new stuff, you can learn new stuff, you read a book, you learned it, you spend 10 minutes on the phone, you've learned something. Skills are what you can do, and behaviours are how you do what you do, and then values is the stuff that drives you, it's the stuff that doesn't change. I can teach new skills, you can learn new behaviours, but the values are the stuff that doesn't change. It's your motivations, your passions. And I think very often when I meet service leavers, they're very happy to talk to me about their skills, but they sometimes find it harder to talk about the behaviours or the values that drive them. Sometimes what that means is if they don't sell their positive behaviours, there can be assumptions of some negative behaviours, which actually have never been proved right when I've met people. So, but that whole kind of, people shouting at each other on a parade ground thing, and there's an assumption that people will be driving for results without necessarily thinking about the impact that they're having on the individuals. I haven't found that with any service leaders that I've worked with, but I think that might be an assumption that people make. And that there may be values that drive that, which are very much around delivery. But certainly from the service leaders that I've worked with, I found that actually their driving passions and motivations are about teamwork and about caring about the people that they work with. And I think if you can get down to that level and talk at that level, because I appreciate for some people that can be quite a new conversation to have, that's the stuff that we recruit people based on. That's the stuff that's really important to us as an organisation. And that's the thing that actually makes these guys really valuable to me as teammates. So.
Thanks for that, Beth. That could have been a bit of an ambush, but I think you dealt with that really well. And yeah, really good answer there. So thank you for that. So we'll close the questions at that. So thank you very much for everyone who sent in their questions there. I hope you've appreciated tonight and the guys at Vets of the Virgin sharing their thoughts. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for contributing towards this. Well, I'll just go to the final slide there, just to show you there's the contact details. You can see there's the email address to the Vets at Virgin team. So yeah, if you want to get in touch, drop the guys a line. And I'm sure they've helped out so many people so far. There's the email address there. And also, finally, probably most valuable, if you are in the area in the northeast on the 8th of June during the general election, I would recommend popping in, meeting the guys at Virgin Money, but also there's other employers at Virgin Money have invited into the room as well. So with no further ado, I'd just like to say thank you very much, guys. Nick, Ed, Beth, thanks very much for your time this evening. And on that note, I would like to wish you a good evening. So thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night,
Cheers.
guys.
Bye now.